Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Nerdcast. We're going to pick the field of 64. Is there a better time of year than right now? I mean, you got conference tournaments starting up, conference races have just kind of wound down. Regional play is just, a few days away. I mean, this is why we do this. Right. And
Yeah.
and we're going to have so much fun tonight picking this field of 64. We're going to do the automatics. We're going to do the at larges. We're going to do the host. We're going to try to seed it. We're going to make some sense. We're going to not make some sense. We're going to argue. We're going to agree. And we're going to do it all in the next, I don't know, 90 minutes or so. I'm Mark Etheridge. I'm here with Aaron Fitt and Kendall Rogers. And guys, just kind of thoughts heading into this.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go with it?
Mark, here's where I want to go.
Yeah.
To quote Kenny Loggins, this is it.
Yeah.
Are you gonna wait for your time? Your miracle. You're just gonna stand up and fight. Let's go, boys.
There we go. I like it. Kendall, can you match Fitt's? His.
I'm bringing.
Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?
Stop it! He's on a roll.
That's well played.
Absolutely, we're Animal House in it tonight. Well, speaking of Animal House, what do you guys think about the top seed here? You have a Kentucky team that has the best resume, but they lost to Tennessee. We kind of talked about that last week. I know my thoughts on it, but where do you guys land?
I like the
Or is
Vols.
there anyone else?
I like the Vols. I mean, the thing is like Kentucky. I mean, if you're just comparing the quad resumes, Kentucky has the edge. But I like the fact that Tennessee shared the title with them and beat them head to head in Lexington. To me, that's a pretty easy way to parse those two teams. And I mean, they're 1-5 in the RPI. It's not like, last week I want to say that Tennessee was like 7, I want to say, when we were having this discussion last week. Now they're 5. So it's a little different.
Yeah, Tennessee,
but I can go either way there.
And Kentucky's now 3, I believe. Kentucky's
they're 2 behind A&M.
Well, it depends on where you look.
Where you look, I suppose, and when you look. But yeah. Mm-hmm. I think I'm with you there, and it's tricky, because Kentucky did what they needed to do, right? They still won their series against Vandy, took 2 out of 3.
Yeah,
it feels a little weird to demote them. They do still have that 19-6 Q1 though. Like so let's look at it. All right, let's step back here. Co-champions, all right? So that's a push.
Right.
Tennessee took 2 out of 3, but the series was
in
Lexington. So like that's a little like added value on that series. It's not just not just like holding serve. Right. At home, you're holding serve. You go on the road and win 2 out of 3. To me, that's louder. 2 spots on RPI, whatever. I don't think that matters. I mean, I don't know if the committee necessarily agrees, but I don't think that matters.
Non-conference strength of schedule, Kentucky's got it by 100.
100.
62 to 160.
Which is loud.
I mean, Tennessee, they played 3 neutral site games and they didn't play another non-conference game away from Lindsay.
That's wild. And then there's the tier 19-6 Q1 versus 14-8. I mean, like that does feel like a very big difference. So I guess I'm kind of like I have no idea.
Yeah,
what's the answer,
how much
Mark?
do you value head to head versus the overall resume? Because Kentucky has a better resume, but
Kentucky has a better resume.
But do you feel like that those 3 games offsets, actually it's the 1 game because it was 2
game, really. Yeah.
Right. Does that outweigh the overall picture?
Yeah.
For me, it doesn't. Right.
Yeah, I think I'm with you, Mark. I think I'm with you. By God.
I see how we're gonna do this.
Yeah, that's how we're gonna do it.
Creating the axis of evil over here.
I'm the swing vote. I'm Justice Kennedy. I'm just gonna go with whoever makes the most cogent argument.
Yeah, well, that's 1 for me tonight. Probably. It's going to be everybody's going to get a turn here. So after these 2. For me, it's A&M, it's Arkansas, and it's North Carolina. Those are the next 3 teams for me. Anyone else you want to suggest for the 3rd spot?
I think those are the 3.
Yep.
Okay. So when you look at this, I had A&M next, and the reason I went with that is I did like their they have 14 quad one wins, which dwarfs just about everyone, but that's still on the board. And they also, if you add quad two, they went 10-0 against quad two, so 24 wins against the top two quads, which is supremely loud. They also won the series from Arkansas last weekend. I know maybe there wasn't a whole lot of riding on that series, but they still won it. The thing with North Carolina, I mean, winning that league, how much do they get a bump for winning the ACC? Good league.
And winning it comfortably, right? They won it by two games over Clemson too.
Right. So it's, for me, I mean, maybe you're splitting hairs, but I went A&M, North Carolina, Arkansas in that order.
That's kind of where I'd have them set up too.
I think I'm with you on that. It's Arkansas is one game ahead of A&M in the standings, but you're right. A&M's number one in the RPI. They have the slightly better Q1. They have the head-to-head. I agree. I think that's the way to parse it.
Okay.
And I mean, you can still poke holes in North Carolina. They're still just 8-8 against Q1, and 14-11 versus Qs 1 and 2. So, and that's the same record as A&M, just Q1.
Right. Okay. So I went Clemson 6.
Yeah, I like that.
Anybody?
I like that.
Speak up for someone else. So
I mean,
then it gets interesting.
You can even make a case for Clemson at 5 over Arkansas, but I think I'm fine with Arkansas than Clemson.
Yeah, and I would also add to, I mean, you guys tell me if you disagree, but I kind of feel like these 6 spots are pretty much locked in.
Feels like it.
It does. Then there's the next group. And for me, it includes Florida State. It includes Oklahoma. And it includes Georgia.
Oregon State.
And Oregon State. Yep, that's my next 4.
ECU out for you, Mark?
Not in the top 8, no.
Yeah,
okay.
out of the top 8, I would agree. Our friend, we'll get to this. Our friend, the needs report, the RPI needs report.
Lady Needsy?
Yeah. Many people are calling her Lady Needsy.
Many
right.
people. Many.
Like how you're saying people as if you don't call her that.
Many people are. Listen, many people are saying. I'm not saying. Many people are saying. She was right that East Carolina dropped despite sweeping Rice. They dropped. They're 16 now in the RPI. It's just not going to get it done for top 8 seed.
Right. So for me, I really like Oklahoma next. 11-6 quad 1. You add quad 2 in there. They're 20-11. They won Big 12. 14-5 on the road. I mean, I know the RPI isn't where you'd want it to be, but it's, for me, I think you win a league like that. You can, you're in the top 15. I mean, I think they're the next team.
Yeah, they won the Big 12 guys by 3 games.
3 games. Yeah, that's loud. I absolutely.
Okay, let's go there. So the next one for me, and I went back and forth on this because I looked at all 3 of these clubs, and I was kind of surprised when I got done because I landed on Georgia. I really thought it would be Florida State before I started. And then I got to looking and comparing the 2 teams together. And I mean, quad 1, 11-11 for Georgia versus 7-7 for Florida State. I would go Georgia there. Then you add in quad 2.
Yeah. They're
10-1 versus 6-4. So you got 21 wins against the top 2 quads. The non-conference strength schedule is not that different. Florida State has an edge, but it's not, not enough to matter, I don't think. And then, neither has a lot of bad losses. That's where I ended up. And then I started looking at Oregon State just to make sure we do due diligence here. And they just hadn't played enough good teams. All right. 3-3 against quad 1, 7-7 against quad 2. They didn't win their league. It's just, I mean, it's a good resume, but it's just not top 8.
Yeah.
At least not yet.
And so let's address this because, the people out west are going to say, well, I'm just going to play devil's advocate here.
Okay. Go for it.
They're going to say, well, these tiers, like it's redundant, right? Like you're looking at the tiers like it's already this built-in advantage for the SEC and the ACC. And so like, of course, they're not going to have as many games against these top tiers, but then and I will say this, it's actually impressive that considering the lack of opportunities they've had against, like, it's not their fault their league sucks, like, granted they didn't win their league, but like the fact that their league is down is why they don't have as many games against those top tiers, and still they're 13 in the RPI. Like, I think that's impressive.
It is.
I agree with all of those sentiments. However, I do feel like if you only have a 3-3 record against Q1, maybe we can make that work if you win your league. But like, you're in the number 6 RPI conference. Is it still number 6? I know it was last week when we checked.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in the number 6 RPI conference and you don't win it, I think it's,
and you don't have something else.
And
right?
and there's exactly like if you manage to
have something that can cancel that out.
Yeah, like if you're still top 8 in the RPI despite finishing second, that's one thing. But you're not. You're 13.
And let's level set here. I mean, we're talking about the top 8. All right, it's not like we say your team sucks. And keep that in mind. This is the best teams in the country we're talking about.
Yeah.
To not be in the top 8 is not a slight. Okay.
And I think Oregon State's really good. I think they're an Omaha team. I think they're going to the College World Series this year. Maybe I'll revise that when I see the brackets. But right now, I love their team. They can win it all. My short list of favorites. It's just like they didn't win their league, guys. Like that's like, unfortunately, it's a 3-bid league that they're in, and they didn't win it. And it's just like that combined with 13th in the RPI and 3 against Q1. It's just not enough to get to that top 8. Not quite.
Yeah. So do you agree with me
said.
that it's Georgia next?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, and that could obviously change with tournament week, but
yeah, I mean, here's the thing the thing that's kind of interesting to me about Florida State is I think they're a really good team, but the fact of the matter is they really don't have a ton of meat on the bone.
No.
I mean, if you look at their non-conference, there's not much meat on the bone. They do have the one win over the Big Ten champ in Illinois. But, I mean, they lost series to Clemson. They lost series to Wake. They did win the series at Duke. That's it in terms of top 25 RPI teams.
I mean, really, the only other series win against a regional team was this weekend against Georgia Tech, right? Like, is that it? As far as series wins against
unless we have Louisville in this week.
Which we don't. Probably.
3 midweeks with Florida.
Sure.
However you want to
that's true.
that.
Yeah, I didn't
so we'll give them that too. Those. But like, it's light. It's light.
I mean, I think they're. I was going to say I think they're better than Georgia. I don't know if they are better than Georgia. Actually, I think those two teams are pretty close.
Pretty comparable.
That would be fun. You want to match them 8-9 and let them.
Oh, let's do it. Yes.
I think it'd be really fun. I totally agree. They're like, I mean, they're very evenly matched.
Can we just have James Tibbs and Condon do a home run derby?
There you go.
Yeah, I'd watch.
Beavers 10.
Yeah, Beavers 10. And then the next group for me is NC State and Virginia would be in that next group.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I would put East Carolina in that next group.
Yep.
I would put Indiana State in that next group.
For sure.
Where are they? Here we are. And UC Santa Barbara in that
for sure. Oklahoma State in that next group, and now we're running out of spots. That feels like the answer.
And then there's Mississippi State that we need to talk about.
Yeah.
And I think I've got 17 teams for 16 spots. So,
I would agree.
Is there anyone else you want to mention? I mean, Arizona, if they go on a Pac-12 tournament run, could get in this mix, but I think they're light right now. They're at 27.
San Diego at 23 marked. I mean, do you get a little leeway being a WCC team?
A little, but I think you need to be in the top 16 if you're going to be there.
Yeah,
2 and 6 quad one.
I think it's more likely that a Pac-12 champion would get some leeway than the WCC champion, even though their quad ones are comparable.
Yeah. I mean, they're having a great year, but I do think that those are the next teams, and then we have to pick, somebody to kill here.
Yep. I think 17 teams for 16 spots. I think there's a clear separation for me after that 17.
Okay.
I think my next team here would be NC State.
That's who I've got.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Love
mean,
it.
here's the thing, just for everybody at home, just to give you an idea of how ridiculously impressive NC State's like series resume is. Series win over Duke, series win over Clemson, series win over North Carolina, series win over Virginia on the road, and a series sweep of Wake Forest. I mean, there may not be a team in the country with that caliber of series wins, period. I don't think there is.
And on the road at Florida State, they split 2.
Yeah.
With a third rained
That's
out.
crazy impressive.
Yeah. Had a great year. So after that, my next 2 were Virginia and East Carolina. So
I think Virginia next for me.
Yeah.
With 12 RPI, 18 and 12 in the league.
Mark, here's a question too.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't it be fair to say that if NC State got hot in the ACC tournament too, they could be a top 8? I kind of feel like they could.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I agree.
And honestly, I think pretty much any of these teams, should they go on and win the conference tournament, would have an argument.
There are 2 spots that are not locked in: Oklahoma and Georgia right now, 7 and 8. And Oklahoma's in pretty good position, but like their RPI still makes them a little vulnerable. 15 RPI.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact is they have 18 losses. I mean, NC State has 19 losses. Like overall, those are things that make them a little vulnerable. But also, as we talked about, I mean, NC State has the high end of that resume is so impressive. I totally agree that if they can make a run here, they can get to Sunday maybe. And depending on what other teams do, like they do have a chance to sneak in the top 8.
Yeah. So NC State, by the way, in the ACC tournament, will play Duke, Virginia Tech, and if they advance, obviously they'll play some other teams. But they're guaranteed to play Duke and Va Tech.
Yep. I'll add this real quick before we move on. People will ask about Wake Forest because they're 11th in the RPI. But it's 15 and 15 in the league, and that right there feels like
they've got work to do in Charlotte.
They need to go on a run.
They need to so Mark, give us the history of this again. Is it one team in 64 team era?
So North Carolina did it a few years ago, and Florida did it. It might have done the same year, where they each were 500 in the conference, went all the way through and won it and hosted. Right.
So the only 2 teams, I'll just emphasize this point for our listeners. In the 64 team era, the only 2 teams that have gone 500 in their league and hosted regionals have done so by winning their conference tournaments.
Correct.
So,
and it's interesting to note that Wake will play North Carolina and Pitt in Pool A. You kind of wonder, I mean, if they can beat Pitt with somebody other than Chase Burns and they can throw Burns against North Carolina, you kind of like their chances to win that pool.
Interesting thought there. Yeah. I mean, you're like in a 1-game situation, you like Chase Burns against anybody in America.
Anybody but Higgins.
What is the order? I don't see the actual schedule. Aaron, do you know who they play in order? Like, do they play North Carolina first?
Hold on, I was just looking at this.
Yeah, I see the image, but I don't see.
I've got it. 1 second.
I don't see the actual schedule.
Yeah, so the first game, North Carolina and Pitt, is on Thursday.
Okay, perfect. That's perfect for Wake then.
Wake and Pitt is Wednesday. So Wake plays Pitt
so that gives them an extra day to race.
Yeah, so
Wake
Forest, North Carolina is the Friday night game, 7 p.m. That'll be a gem. Winner likely advances.
So that's literally like a full week. That's a full week rest for Chase Burns.
Yep. That's
okay. Well, so there's a pathway there for Wake.
Yeah. There's a pathway to at least make it interesting. Like that said, they probably need to get to Sunday. At least, man, probably need to win the thing is what we're saying based on history.
Well, they certainly have the RPI, so it's just winning the games,
which is helpful. But I mean, the fact that they got swept this weekend was a pretty big setback. Like win 1 game, we're having a different conversation. Get swept, here's the reality.
Right. So who do you like next? For me, it's Virginia.
Yeah, Virginia would be next for me, and then probably Indiana State or Santa Barbara. Maybe those 2 in order in some configuration there. Like they're 9 and 10 in the RPI. Both.
I kind of like Santa Barbara over. I kind of like ECU, Santa Barbara, Indiana State.
So East. I don't know if I would have ECU ahead of Indiana State and Santa Barbara. I mean, the only thing they really have going for them is they're famous, but they're behind to both in the RPI. Well, they are. I mean, hey, they're East Carolina. It matters. But they're 16th in the RPI. Indiana State and Santa Barbara are 9 and 10. The metrics kind of favor those other 2 teams, don't they? Like all 3 of them are like league winners.
Right.
Yeah. Well, this could be another one of those
Sa-
two where ECU can go run through their conference tournament
Yeah.
and win both titles.
I-
Maybe it matters.
Here's what also
I'm
like.
good with that. I have
Here's
no
what
issue
else
with that order.
Here's what else I like about Santa Barbara: that 11-4 against Q2, so that makes them 14-7 against Q's 1 and 2, which trumps the other two. So I might go Santa Barbara 13, Indiana State 14, Pirates 15.
I can live with that.
I mean, you could make it. Feel free to sell me on ECU ahead of those two. I'm listening.
What do you? I mean, don't we think ECU? Well, I get we're going off metrics, but like, didn't you pick ECU to get to Omaha?
Yeah, and if they're healthy, I absolutely still believe it. But
did Root not pitch again over the weekend?
I'm pretty sure. So when I was there on Thursday,
oh, that's right, you were at the opener.
Yeah, Cliff said that he was not expecting Root and Lunsford Shankman to pitch on the weekend. I had not actually checked back to see if they did.
I kind of feel like until we know they're back, then I'm good with this because then it's tough to kind of project them.
Right, like
that thing.
Sounds like they're expecting them both back, but like the fact that they haven't pitched yet, like at some point you can keep saying you're expecting them back. So they did not. They indeed, I'll confirm, they did not pitch this weekend. So and we're talking about Root, like a big time number 2 starter, and Lunsford Shankman, who leads the country in the ERA, or at least he did when he got hurt. He's a big bullpen stopper, like a big time guy. So like. Huge question marks for me.
Yeah.
Okay. So the only thing, well, one of the things to consider with East Carolina is non-conference strength of schedule is 13. Obviously, Indiana State's is good; they're 25, and Santa Barbara's isn't. It's 122.
But they have the better Q's 1 and 2 record.
They do. So, and where this comes into play is if they're close and you're trying to break a tie, right? That tends to matter. If you don't feel that they're tied, it doesn't matter.
So ECU is just 8-9 against Q's 1 and 2. Santa Barbara's 14-7. To me, that way more than offsets the non-conference strength of schedule rating, especially since Santa Barbara's 6 spots ahead in the RPI.
Okay, I can live with that. So then it comes down to one spot left: Oklahoma State and Mississippi State. Before we tag these guys head to head, anybody else you want to mention for this final spot? Duke.
So I mean, I'll say no on Duke, but they're not out of it. They're 20 in the RPI, 16 and 14 in the league. Like they need to make a run, but they're not out of it.
We talked about San Diego and Arizona. Is there anyone else?
I mean, DBU. I just they're 21 in the RPI, 40 and 13 overall, 8 and 2 Q1. Those are nice things, but
I would say this.
La Tech
keep an eye on La Tech in the conference tournament. While I'm mentioning their metrics, what does the Lady Needsy say about La Tech? Because they're 26 right now. They're 18. They went 18-6 in the league, 41-15 overall. Number 62 non-conference strength of schedule. So do they have a pathway?
Our friend Lady Needsy no longer applies since we get to conference tournaments because we don't know what the remaining schedule is going to be for each team. So. There's no more needs report, I'm afraid. I regret to inform you at this stage.
Our condolences.
Thank you for your service, Lady Needsy. You've been a wonderful companion this spring.
Well, I mean, you just kind of wonder if La Tech, if they rolled through their conference tournament and they beat DBU on the way, maybe they could get in the mix. But they also opened the tournament with 219 RPI in TSU.
Yeah, I don't love their chances, but I mean, I would say that the fact that they won the league and head-to-head against DBU kind of feels like a disqualifier for DBU.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely up. But someone would have to open the door for them to come in and take it.
Yeah, I don't see anyone else, Mark.
Yeah, if you're La Tech, you're really wanting Oklahoma State to crap the bed in the Big 12 tournament and Mississippi State just to lose to Ole Miss.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
So Mississippi State's problem is the RPI. They lost the one game to Missouri and fell from like 18 to 24. Okay.
Yep.
After winning the series. So the question for them is going to be, how much does their conference finish help them? They're 17 and 13. Sometimes that's a host in the SEC world. Sometimes it's not. It's dependent on your RPI. So I think for Mississippi State, they're going to need to win some games, and they are, as you mentioned, they've got Ole Miss in the opener, and then they draw Texas A&M, which is certainly not easy. Not that any of these second round games for these people, any of these teams are going to be easy, but that's a tough one. I don't think that I'm projecting them to go on a massive run, and I would feel more confident about Oklahoma State's ability to win multiple games this week.
That's where I'm at, guys. And I mean, 19-9 in the Big 12 is impressive, with a 17 RPI. For me, it just feels like the more obvious solution here. And plus, we've got plenty of SEC teams. Like, makes it, and not that the committee's looking at it this way, but it makes sense to just take a second Big 12 team when they've got the better metrics at the moment, anyway.
Well, they have the better RPI.
The better RPI and the better I guess the slightly better conference record. Granted, not in as rugged of a conference. Q1 is slightly Mississippi State 12 and 11, Oklahoma State 9 and 11. Q2 though, Oklahoma State 7-3, Mississippi State 6-2. It's not a huge difference in the tiers. Non-conference strength of schedule is about a wash. They're both in a similar range. So I think
for me, the RPI, right? That's for me is the difference.
Primarily the RPI
and the path.
Yep.
Okay.
So I like Oklahoma State.
Kendall?
I'm good with that. Yeah.
Okay.
So changes from last week then. Mississippi State is out.
Mm-hmm.
Replaced by
Santa Barbara, right? Did we take them out?
Wait, let's look back one. You're right. Yeah, Santa Barbara was a 2 last week.
Yep, it was.
Also, Wake is out.
Yeah, Wake is out, and
NC State is in, right?
NC State is in. Yep.
Wake also out as a top 8.
Don't get swept.
Yeah. And we said it last week, like for people, I heard this on Twitter this weekend. People were complaining, you have Wake's going all the way from a top 8 to out. Well, we said it on the thing last week. Like, we had Wake as a top 8 because we were projecting them to win that series on the road, coming off they swept Clemson the previous week. Like that was loud to us. We thought they would parlay that momentum into a series winning against NC State. We were wrong. But we also, it was kind of a coin toss series. Like, we also were debating, like, we kind of wanted to put NC State as a host last week. We thought they could win that series, but and if they did, we thought they would be a host, and that's how it played out.
The way I like to approach these is we have different data than we had last week. We know more. So why should we hold ourselves to what we thought last week when we knew less? So this thing progresses week after week, game after game, and it's going to change. It's going to evolve. Don't be, don't stick to your guns and go, we thought this was good last week, so that's the way it's got to be forever. No, we know more. We're smarter. So let's make better decisions.
God, listen to the Nerdmaster General. He's a cool guy.
Well, thanks. Let's pick some automatic bids, guys. We're 1 through 16. We're done there. Let's go to the Bryant Athletic Conference.
Let's indeed, Marcus.
The America East.
Yes, indeed. So your Bryant Bulldogs won the league by 3 games in the regular season. They will remain our projected automatic qualifier in the Bryant Athletic Conference. America East, of course, I should say the Pirate Athletic Conference. That's even more firmly established. ECU rebounded. ECU rebounded well from the 5-game losing streak, which included a sweep against Tulane. They swept Rice this weekend and took care of business.
And you know what? What if East Carolina doesn't win the automatic bid? What would happen, guys?
I think that would be a bid stealer, Kendall.
Yeah. So that's the thing to keep in mind. All of you bubble fans of bubble teams out there, you do not want stolen bids. You want these favorites that are going to be in the field anyway to go ahead and win those automatic bids. Otherwise, somebody who wasn't going to be in the field, they're going to get in, and that's one less spot for you or the next bubble team or whomever.
So we're going to help you out by mashing that siren whenever there's a stolen bid alert.
And Kendall's on it.
He's on it. A little too on
So
it.
yeah. So with the A10, St. Louis still?
Yeah, Billikens win the league by half game over VCU.
Mhm.
They remain the projected pick.
Okay. So after that, we are looking
ACC.
at ACC.
So we've got some clarity here. Clemson, North Carolina, Virginia, NC State, Florida State, all in as hosts already. That's 5. Right. We've got Duke that's 6. Georgia Tech, I feel pretty good about after managing to avoid that sweep this past weekend. Not a slam dunk, but 15-15 in the league, 46 RPI, good trend in the second half. I like where they're at. Virginia Tech is out. They were already out last week. They remain even more out now. Getting swept by Virginia, guys. That's 5 or 6 straight ACC series losses to end the year. I mean, they had all that goodwill and they finished 14-16 in the league with a 61 RPI heading into the conference tournament. A lot of work to do. And then Louisville, Mark.
Yeah, I think Louisville's on the bubble. I mean, they could play their way in this week. If the season ended today, I don't think they get in. But they do have a winning conference record. It's just the RPI is just not their friend at the moment. Yeah. And so they got work to do, but they are within striking distance. So, it's not like their RPI is 70 or something. It's in the 50s. 52. So that win some games and you're where Georgia Tech is.
52 with a 7-15 Q1 record, which is not great, but and also it's a poor non-conference strength of schedule. That's really the biggest knock on Louisville,
and that's why the RPI is where it is.
Yeah, it's a 247 non-conference strength of schedule. # play somebody. We got to do better than that with our scheduling.
Yeah,
and that's why they are where they are. And it's not like they did well against that non-conference. It was what 16-8. Against a non-conference, something like that. It's not great.
Yeah, 16-8.
So anyway, they need to win some games. They need to. I mean, like if ACC team outside the top 50, even with a winning record, not a good precedent for that. But they're on the bubble. They got a shot. So it's a soft bubble. I think I forgot to mention Wake Forest. They're also obviously in the field. Onward to the A-Sun. I think that's it.
I missed them completely.
I think I just neglected to mention.
Okay.
A-Sun boys, we have a 3-way tie for first. Stetson, Austin P, Gulf Coast. I stick with the Govs here.
Yep.
Okay.
Agreed.
The Big 12.
The Big 12. Kendall's so excited with the Big 12.
Oof.
Oklahoma State.
Texas. West Virginia.
Texas, West Virginia.
Those teams are
West Virginia's, 1911. They got the big series win over TCU.
33 in the RPI now for West Virginia.
And then it gets a little dicey.
4 locks, and then it gets dicey. So Kansas State is would probably be my next team, just because they're 41 in the RPI with a 15-15 record. I think that's good enough, even though they're just 6-14 against Q1, which is not great.
Yeah.
Cincinnati finished 2 games ahead of them in the standings, 17-13, which is nice, but just 55 in the RPI.
Is a problem.
Yeah, as the needs report told us, playing Oklahoma at home did not help them. They lost 2 out of 3 as well.
I would have TCU ahead of Kansas State. 1 spot higher in RPI. Kansas State did finish 1 game ahead of them, but TCU does have the head-to-head.
So I guess the question I would have is, how do you separate TCU and UCF? Okay, so one's 40, one's 41. One's 14-15, one's 14-16. There's not a lot of difference in the quads. I think for me, they're the same team right now.
And there's no head-to-head, which is unfortunate.
So you're gonna push TCU ahead. I think UCF's in that discussion as well.
Right.
And maybe they're all 3 in, and it doesn't matter what order, but.
Yeah, if you put all 3 in, there'd be 7 bids out of the league, which is possible.
They're back to back in the RPI.
Yeah. Are they bubble
I
or are they in?
I would put them in for now. I would put Kansas State and UCF in as bubble, but have them in.
I mean, in TC, if those teams
So-
are bubble and TCU's bubble,
Yeah,
like they're
right,
all in the
right.
exact same
Yeah,
situation.
that's fine.
You stole my comment. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all really similar.
How do you? But here's my question for you, Mark. Those three, how do you reconcile them versus Cincinnati? With the Cincinnati being 15
the
spots
RPI.
ish. Yeah. So
We
do you have
played this
Cincinnati
game
behind
last
them all?
year with Kansas State and Oklahoma.
Cincinnati being 2 games ahead of K-State and more than that ahead of TCU and UCF doesn't matter.
Conferences are massive. It's unbalanced. Conference standings don't mean what they used to.
Okay, that's why I asked the question. So Cincinnati would be at the back end of this for you. TCU, Kansas State, UCF in some order, interchangeable, and then Cincinnati.
I mean, Cincinnati's on the bubble, but they're, they would be the last of this group.
It's worth mentioning, despite the RPI, that Cincinnati went 5-1 against TCU and UCF.
That is worth mentioning. And they play in the first game of the Big 12 tournament, which feels like
Just
it will matter.
Kansas State swept Oklahoma last year.
Yeah, that's true too. That's true too. I will say Cincinnati's series win against UCF was on the road in Orlando, and they swept TCU. So at home, like it does feel loud. But anyway, you're right. They also have a series win against West Virginia, which also feels loud. Cincinnati's resume is like it's intriguing.
But it's 5-11, quad 1, but
Yeah.
quad 2, it's much better. It's just the RPI. I mean, if their RPI was 45 instead of 55, they would be ahead of these teams. That 10 points matters, though.
Yeah.
I think it does.
Yeah. I can't argue with you.
Yeah, let me see where Cincinnati is in the KPI.
Oh, yeah. Please check the KPI. This is something we know that the committee is using this year.
They're 44 in the KPI.
What are the
Kansas
others?
State is 41.
UCF 36, TCU 30.
Yeah.
Okay, so Cincinnati's still the lowest in the KPI.
They're still, so they're exactly where we have them.
And if you're
bottom of the group.
And if you're curious about where they stand in the DSR, even though the committee is not using DSR this year, Cincinnati's 66 in the DSR. So that's pretty low. UCF's 37. TCU's 36. And Kansas State is 61. So interesting.
Okay.
So it feels like the metrics basically agree that TCU and UCF are the consensus top 2 out of these 4, and then maybe Kansas State and Cincinnati.
Yeah,
that's
the way I would do it. Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
I would probably do UCF then TCU. Anyway,
Okay.
Go on.
So then you have the Big East, and certainly UConn has played their way into a slam dunk, right? And then after that, I'm not sure anybody's getting in, but we can talk about it.
You know what that means.
UConn should get knocked
on your
off.
game. You're on your game.
Well done, K. Rizzle. If UConn should get knocked off in the conference tournament, that is a stolen bid for sure, because that's a large team.
Mm-hmm.
Xavier, guys, is the one that's interesting. They're 12-9 in the league, 5 games behind UConn, 2 games behind St. John's, a game and a half behind Georgetown. So they're in fourth place.
Mm-hmm.
The conference standing is an issue, and how many games back they are is an issue.
And this is a small conference, right? It's not one of these, 16 team.
Yeah, fourth place in an 8-team league. What they have going for them, though, is 38 in the RPI, 8-12 Q1, which, like, you compare that to a lot of teams, like 8-12 Q1 is pretty good.
That's good for a bubble. I mean, we could put them on the bubble and see where they land.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I did when I went through this exercise. But
I would say so.
It's
the standings are problematic.
Yeah.
The losing a series to Villanova when you're trying to play for your regional lives is not a great look there. St. John's and Georgetown, by the way, I mean, the 2 teams ahead of Xavier in the standings, it's RPI issues. 63 for St. John's, 59 for Georgetown. Maybe they can make a move in the conference tournament. They'll need to in the RPI. If they do, then maybe there's a chance, especially St. John's, because I like the 4-4 Q1. 14-7, second place in the league. Like it feels like they're more in striking distance than Georgetown, just because Georgetown's 0-4 Q1.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning too. The KPI, which we know the committee will use to some degree, has Xavier at 62.
Where are St. John's and Georgetown?
Let's see here. Big East. St. John's 73, Georgetown 75.
Okay, so Xavier and the KPI is the clear cut number 2 team, so that's useful.
Yeah.
So let's leave Xavier on the sheet here as our number 2 team in the Big East.
Okay.
And we'll move to the Big South where we had High Point projected. Guys, Aaron Fitt's fighting Blue Hose. Aaron Fitt's fighting Blue Hose of Presbyterian College. Win the league, 18-6. Have I not been talking these guys up for the last 8 weeks?
They won the league, but somehow lost a series of the Citadel 2 weeks ago.
You know, we don't need to talk about that. They won the
Details.
league. Should we make that change like Michael Jackson would do? Make that change.
Okay.
Presbyterian replaces High Point. Kendall's out of control.
What is happening?
Kendall's out of control with the button.
That's our automatic bid change sound.
Like you should start with the man in the mirror, Kendall. Presbyterian replaces High Point. All right.
That's a hard word to spell, and you're not even close.
I did not.
Presbyterian. It sounds like you losing a tongue or something.
Onward. Big Ten, please. Thank you, guys.
Illinois.
Big
Congrats
Ten's
to
got a lot.
Dan Hartleb's Illini.
Illinois playing well, man.
2 games.
Loud. I mean, loud.
And their RPI, by the way, is up to 43. So they're safe.
I mean, they're in. They're in.
Yeah.
Not just a placeholder or they won the league, so we'll just like give them a spot. No, 43 RPI, and they won the league in the regular season by 2 games over Nebraska. Easy, slam dunk. They're in. Congratulations to those guys sweeping Purdue on the road this weekend. Huge. Played their field.
Yeah, they could forget to bring bats to the conference tournament, still get in.
Yeah. There's really only one other option to get in, and it would be Indiana at 60. That's probably still a little light, but 15-9 in league. They finished 3 games out of first place, and they're probably going to rank pretty well with the regional advisory committee. But again, the RPI guys seems a little low to me.
They got to do some work with 60 RPI. They do some work. But however, Kendall, you might want to get your finger ready here on the button. If a team besides Illinois or Nebraska should win the Big Ten tournament,
what would that be?
That'd be a stolen bid alert. Alert! Keep an eye on that one, because usually wild things feel like they happen in that league, in that conference tournament. But if Illinois or Nebraska wins it, it'll be a 2-bid league. Otherwise, you got a stolen bid alert.
Right.
There'll be no stolen bid alert in the Big West because there's no conference tournament. Once again, it's the last year of no conference tournament in the Big West.
Yep.
Santa Barbara and Irvine.
UC Irvine, Cal Poly's RPI is at 100. Hawaii's not getting in with an RPI of 69, but Rich Hill's program's done a really nice job this year, fellas. 17-10, 30-16, 9-1 their last 10. Really intriguing club. Stitchhead wrote something about them last night that was really good.
Yeah, and a nice 1-9 of the last. I think you just said 1-9 of their last 10. I mean, that's an impressive surge here down the stretch. Good for them, but they're 4th place, 69 RPI. Yeah, that's not.
Yeah, and they finished with Fullerton. I was about to say if they finish with maybe UCSB or Irvine on the road or something, maybe there is a pathway, but nope, not going to happen.
Yep. CAA, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Aaron has to leave the room when we talk about Northeastern.
He's
and I literally
biased.
want you to leave the room.
Listen, I hate to do this to you guys, but I mean, Mark is the Nerdmaster General. My 3 favorite letters, guys, by the way, are NMG. But the NMG's 3 favorite letters are RPI. He always tells us RPI is boss. RPI is king.
You know me.
RPI is king. Northeastern is 29 in the RPI.
Yeah.
They're 38-15 overall, like period.
They're getting in, guys.
They're in. I don't care what Kendall thinks. Kendall hates Mike Glavin and his program.
What?
He hates his town of Brookline.
He's just a hater. He doesn't just hate teams. I mean, he hates the individual people on those teams.
He also hates
the fans.
He also hates dogs with long hair that live in
mascots.
cold climates.
I mean,
huskies. He's not a fan of.
I have a dog that has
kicks
long
kittens. I mean, it's just a bad dude.
And why do you hate huskies? Is what I want to know.
Yeah, I don't know.
They're getting in. And listen, I'm not even saying even as the ultimate Northeastern proponent in this group, I'm not even saying they deserve to get in because they did lose the head-to-head to both Charleston and Wilmington. I think Charleston and Wilmington are both more deserving. They both finished ahead of Northeastern in the standings. Charleston won the league by 3.5 games. Wilmington's 2 games ahead of Northeastern. Their RPIs are also bubbly, 50 and 48 respectively. I think their bodies of work are better. I think they're more deserving. I think Northeastern should be number 3 in the pecking order. That doesn't mean I don't think Northeastern should also get in. Maybe all 3 of them will, but if you had to have a pecking order, Northeastern should be 3rd. However, the RPI is the king.
31 road games.
It's a lot. And they should be rewarded for that. That's
12.
hard to do. That's hard to do. Mm-hmm. If you're playing in Massachusetts and the season starts in the middle of freaking winter in February, that makes your job a lot harder. It's hard to go 38 and 15 when you play in Brookline, Massachusetts. So give them credit. I'm coming back around on it. They deserve it, guys.
So the question is, what do we do with the other 2 teams? I mean, I think they're certainly both bubble. Charleston winning the league, but the RPI is 50. I mean, there is a long history of conference champs in that range who get left out. There's some that made it. I mean, it's not an absolute thing, but I do think it's going to depend on, stolen bids, no buzzer, but it's going to depend on things like that and what some of the other bubble teams do.
I also like that they not only did they win the league, they won 2 out of 3 on the road at Wilmington. They won 2 out of 3 versus Northeastern. I know Campbell is not your father's Campbell, but they won 2 out of 3 at Campbell. I mean, they won all the series, right? Series. They took care of business in the series all year long. Yeah, you're welcome. They got swept by Nebraska early, and that was kind of like their opportunity to make some hay, and they didn't capitalize. But since then, they've been really just nails, and I just think they deserve to get in. They won their league, and I hope if they wind up on the bubble, that the committee rewards them.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. What KPI weigh in on this, Kendall? Charleston and Wilmington.
One?
Charleston.
Yeah.
And Wilmington?
Let's see here. Wilmington 58.
Okay.
Where is Charleston? They must be on page 1. Northeastern 46.
Oh yeah.
50.
And
same as RPI.
Yeah, and Charleston is the darling of the DSR, by the way. DSR has Charleston at 23, which I think should matter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
interesting.
Smoking.
Wilmington 41 in the DSR. And my Northeastern Huskies are lower, I believe, in the DSR. 45.
Because it doesn't give you as much credit for road games.
The road games, right?
Yep.
So anyways, let's leave all 3 of them on the board for now. I mean, I think the hierarchy is...
It should be Charleston,
Wilmington,
and
Northeastern.
But we won't relitigate it.
We could split the difference and give the conference champ the top spot there. I mean, we're projecting them as the automatic bid anyway, but Charleston, Northeastern.
Yeah, you want to do that?
Yeah. Let's make that our pecking order. The Wilmington people are going to be up in arms, but that's the reality.
Okay.
Onward to Conference USA. This is an easy one. 2 bids. La Tech, DBU, and that's all.
Yep.
All right.
Horizon, Wright State guys they won the league in a walk-off. I think it was a walk-off home run by Andrew Patrick, if I'm not mistaken. Exciting finish against the Norse. Should be a fun little conference tournament in the Horizon. But no change in the projections.
Yeah, in the Ivy League, let's just go ahead and
make that change. All All right, we can't get the rights to real Michael Jackson. We'll take the Bobo Michael, Bobo
Got
MJ.
bumper music.
Yeah, Columbia has been eliminated from the Ivy League tournament.
Make that
guys.
change. I
So
like
it's
it.
Princeton. Is that who you
Yeah.
want? They were second. They won.
Is
who won Princeton and Penn today?
Oh yeah,
I don't
let's
know.
check that.
Oh, today? I don't know.
Yeah, Princeton and
They had
Penn
the
played today.
carpet delay. They had the carpet delay. The suspended play.
Cornell beat Penn, and then Princeton lost to Penn.
Wait, so
what?
So Cornell
they're doing a regional style tournament. So
so Cornell right now is 2-0, I believe. Let me look.
Big Red in the catbird seat. The fighting Dan.
Yeah, Cornell 2-0.
How about that?
Okay. Well, that's
Go Big Red. Go Big Red.
This may be decided by the time this podcast airs. This may actually be. We'll try to get up early tomorrow, but we'll go ahead and make that change to Cornell.
We got it. So, what would be next?
Guys, we got the MAAC.
Unfortunately, I can't use the stolen bid siren for this one. How about Niagara and Fairfield tying for the conference?
Yeah, I think the Stags actually got the top seed. I believe they won the head-to-head, so that's no change, right? We had Fairfield last week.
Yeah. Yep. Can't wait for all this MAAC analysis. There's another league that you're really good at too, and we'll get to it in a minute.
Can we send Shotgun to the MAAC tournament instead of the Pac-12?
He's going to the Summit League.
Summit. Okay, great. That's where we really need him.
Sorry.
You're both going to be there? Sorry.
We're double teaming
it. Guys.
We're double teaming now.
We're leaving Hoover. We're leaving Hoover to go to the Summit League.
Oh, good God. What a world.
Okay.
Mid-American Conference.
Falls is beautiful this time of year. I don't actually know where the tournament is. I just guess Sioux Falls.
Why not?
Why not?
The Mid-American is Bowling Green, of course.
Yeah. Missouri Valley.
Sioux Falls, you nailed it. It is. No, it's basketball. Hold on. Stand by. Tulsa. I think we'll get to that.
Oh, you know what that means.
I'm liking Oral Bob's chances here. Yeah.
Here they come.
Mid-American is Bowling Green, won the league by 5 games, so they will remain our projected bid there.
Yeah.
Congrats to the Falcons. The Valley, of course, one bid league.
Indiana State, but guess what?
Yeah.
For all you stolen bid fans.
Oh, hit me.
If the 6 go down the conference tournament, that will be a stolen bid. Indiana State with an RPI of 9 is guaranteed to be in the tournament. Interestingly enough, just to point out, it's kind of interesting to see how the ebbs and flows of somebody's RPI. UIC was a team that 4 weeks ago we talked about their RPIs in like the 50s. They're all the way down to 92 now. Kind of interesting.
How about that? Wow. Yeah, they were in our field at one point.
Yeah, they were in our midseason field.
Yeah. Murray State is your next best. It's amazing that Indiana State can manage. Again, it's unbelievable. They can manage to build a number 9 RPI. They've got a hosting case, a borderline top 8 case in a league where the next best team is 72 in the RPI. How?
Yeah,
I get road games. But also, how?
27 road games. Yeah,
it's unbelievable. That and just dominating the heck out of their league. It's just super impressive. What they've done. It's amazing. They really have cracked the code on the RPI, though. It's incredible
for sure. Well, going to the Mountain West. Last week we had New Mexico. Yeah. Well,
I think it's Air Force now.
Make that change.
Air Force takes over the top spot. It's the the Falcons. The Falcons won auto bid.
You were going so good. Why did you stop? I mean, I was kind of feeling it. The hair on the back of my neck. There's a lot of it, and it stood up.
Hashtag loopy.
Between now and our next,
you know what? I'm going to redeem myself at some point in this pod. That was terrible.
I loved it.
Yeah,
all I know
what was worse? What was worse, that or me saying series?
Series. Oh, that was
terrible.
fantastic. Between now and next Sunday, Kendall, between now and next Sunday, I want you to get the rights to Man in the Mirror so we can at least play the snippet. We got to at least play the snippet. Make that change. All right.
Nick.
NEC, guys. Sacred Heart was our projected qualifier last week. They did win the regular season by one game over Long Island. So let's stick with your Pioneers of Sacred Heart.
It's still very sacred.
The most sacred of hearts. Onward to the Ohio Valley.
Yeah.
Little Rock, we never wavered in our faith in these guys. I think
we've been maybe Little Rock solid.
Maybe.
Yeah. Congrats to Chris Curry and company. First regular season championship in program history.
Is that right?
Pretty impressive. Yeah.
That's awesome. Good for them.
Yeah.
They got a good club. 4 seed. I don't want to see them in regional.
All right.
Pac-12.
West Coast fans might want to just step out of the room for this one.
Yeah, y'all just go get some water. It's good. We'll be done quickly here. Arizona, Oregon State, and Oregon next.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on Cal.
I mean, we were really talking them up a few weeks ago, and it's just been a train wreck.
We stubbornly stuck with them even last week when the RPI dipped to 70-ish, and they rewarded us by getting swept by USC, and RIP to their at-large case. Even with help in the room, ain't going to happen.
I will say this about Cal. Cal 13.
Cal's interesting.
Yeah, 65 RPI. The Pac-12 has pool play, so they'll play Washington, which won't help them. But they will play Arizona, which on a neutral field with an RPI 28, that will help them. Yeah, I would also say keep an eye on Arizona State. They're playing really well right now. If you look at their trend line over the last 3 or 4 weeks, keep an eye on them in the conference tournament. I'm not saying they're going to win it, but up to 75 in the RPI, 17-13, and in their pool they have Stanford and Oregon State. So obviously that Oregon State game is going to loom very large if they can win that Stanford game.
I'm also going to say for Cal, it's a very interesting resume. 6-6 against Quad 1. They swept UConn early, and they swept Oregon State late. And those are 2 loud data points that I think do matter and should matter. They were swept at home by Arizona, which hurts, and also were swept at Arizona State the week before that. So they've had a very up and down year. They lost series to Oregon and Utah, but just 2 out of 3. Yeah, it's just a weird, crazy up and down resume. But the bottom line is they're 65 in the RPI, and it's 17-13 in the league, 5th place. So they're I don't know. I just don't know what.
I'll say this: if Cal can get within range, and I get it, teams get bids, conference don't get bids, but if Cal can just get within range, get their RPI in the top 60, and they play well in the conference tournament, I just have a feeling they're getting in.
And we have seen, as Mark talked, I think it was last week's Nerdcast, we talked about the 2 teams. I think it was just 2 teams outside the top 60 that have gotten bids in the last 15 years or however long it's been. Yeah. And they were both Pac-12 teams. It was Oregon and Washington, I believe.
Yeah, Washington, was the other one.
62, I believe.
So, 65 for a Pac-12 team is not a disqualifier, as it is for a lot of other teams, a lot of other conferences. But
you just need something else, and that's where they got to win games. That's what it boils down to.
But I think
on the board, but it's how much faith do you have in their ability to win multiple games this week.
And I think that something else for them would be swept Oregon State, swept UConn, and 17-13, in their league, which is something. So I think those are things that very much put them on the board.
Okay. It's weird quads for them. 4-2 quad 1, which is good. It's just not many games, but 8-8 quad 2, but then 5-7 quad 3. Usually, the farther down you go, the better you are. They've actually played better against the teams than those mediocre ones. That
really weird resume.
Yeah, worth mentioning, by the way, the KPI has Cal at 60. Where does the DC or the DSR have Cal, Aaron?
49.
Okay.
So DSR likes them best.
All
And the
right.
Patriot League finals are underway as we record this. Army has won the first game, so Army's up
Yeah,
1-0. So we will stick with
Black
that projection.
Knights.
Okay.
On to the
Oh, here we
SEC.
Hmm.
Let's parse these teams apart. How shall
Let's
we?
indeed. Let's indeed. So we've got already Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, A&M, Georgia, Mississippi State. Those teams are all safely in.
Yep. And then you've got 5, 13, and 17 teams.
Yeah.
How about that?
So I'll start with this.
Okay.
I think of the remaining teams, I think I feel the best about Alabama. Alabama, just to kind of give you a rundown, Alabama has a weekend win over the Pac-12 champion in non-conference. They have a series win over Tennessee. They have a series win over Arkansas, and they have a series win in the last 2 weeks over one of these contenders in LSU. And by the way, their
South
RPI is
Carolina,
18. Yeah,
Also
and South Carolina, and their RPI is 18.
They're the next team for me.
Yep,
I would agree.
agreed. They didn't play Vandy, did they?
They did not.
Yeah. Yeah, Alabama to me is in the strongest
yeah.
position.
Top 20 RPI and 13 and 17 in the league is generally speaking like that's enough right there.
Yeah. In my next team here would probably be LSU. I actually really like the way they're playing down the stretch.
Yep.
They've won four of their last 5 SEC series.
Yeah, they lost
They
their
have a
first
series
5
win
and
over
then
A&M.
won 4 out of 5. Yeah.
Yeah. Does anybody in this group have a series win comparable to beating A&M 2 out of 3 at home? No.
Florida did the same thing.
Oh, there you
To
go.
Georgia. Yeah, on the road.
Well, they beat
They-
A&M too. I was there.
Right.
That's right. At home. Yeah, I mean that's a lot. So here's my issue on Florida. We can debate this, and I know we talked about this a lot in the group chat. The problem I have with Florida is they have some nice series wins, but you're well under 500 in conference in a very tough conference as a caveat. But the problem is they did nothing in non-conference. They lost a lot of non-conference games, which is why they're hovering around 500 overall. I just think if you're Florida, what is the pitch? RPI only?
Number 1 strength of schedule. Overall, 15 strength of schedule non-conference.
Yeah, but you only won half of those.
Well, that's strength of schedule is a metric, right? It's not how did you do against it.
Right.
It's one is how many bubble teams? I mean, Alabama does, but who else does?
Yeah,
it's on the bubble. Nobody. Right?
Who else does what? I'm sorry.
Who else has 13 quad 1 wins? That's on the bubble.
Yeah.
Right. So it's granted you're playing a lot of teams that beat you, but you're also winning a lot of those teams against really good teams.
So that's the thing that's easy to forget is Florida did win some really nice series. Mark mentioned A&M. They also took 2 out of 3 at LSU, another bubble team. They took 2 out of 3 from Mississippi State, a host candidate. At Georgia. That's 4. Is that 4?
Yeah.
Is my counting correct? That's 4 pretty good weekends.
Yeah, for sure.
But
so go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, it's a weird resume. I'll give you that. It's just they're one of those clubs that we expect, and they disappointed us. And I think, at least from my perspective, that it really, I guess, tainted how I viewed them through the year. They were just such a big disappointment. I do think that, you got Cags and you've got some really good players on this team.
80 on the committee.
Yeah. It's
number 1 strength of schedule. I have a hard time believing that they're going to walk away from a team with a number 1 strength of schedule.
Yeah.
That won 13 games in the league and has 4 high-end series wins and won the bubble matchup against LSU on the road. You're right, Mark. I think you sold me on Florida maybe even over
Yeah.
LSU.
I think Florida is going to get in. I really do.
Is,
And
is
also,
Vandy,
LSU's going to get in.
is Vandy
the-
behind those teams?
Just to give you an idea of how the KPI stacks these teams
Yeah,
up in
please.
order, which is really interesting because I would have Vanderbilt probably near the bottom of this list. They have Vandy 18, Florida 20, LSU 21, South Carolina 23.
Oh yeah, South Carolina is the other one that we hadn't even talked about yet.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean South Carolina swept Vanderbilt.
Yep.
And won a series at Florida.
Jeez.
Yeah,
They
so I
also
mean,
won
all
a
these
series
different
over
teams. I
Kentucky.
mean, literally, I mean, it's like a beauty pageant. It's like, what do you prefer, really?
I
They're
mean,
all
the
very,
conference
very
tournament will matter for sure, but go ahead, Mark.
So the other thing is they're not just being compared against each other. Okay, we're doing that exercise here,
Yeah.
but they're being compared against all these other bubble teams that people are going to yell and scream, but it's not the committee's, I guess, uh, area to view, to go out and say, well, I know you have a lot of good wins, but this other team they didn't get as many chances as you did, so we're going to prop them up and hold you down. That's not what the committee does. They look at who you played, they look at the competition that you've done, and yeah, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some because you're playing better teams.
Sure,
Right?
but also,
Meanwhile,
if you're 9-18 against Q1, for instance, I mean that's what 33%. Is that a 33 winning percentage? Do I have that math right? Like
it's
that's
not what you want.
It's not good. Like it's
Right.
one thing. I mean, and that's South Carolina's record against Q1. Like, yeah, you played a lot of Q1 teams. Like, kudos, but like you won 33% of them. Like a 333 winning percentage is bad against anybody. I don't care if they're good teams. It's bad. Period.
So they should just play worse teams? Is that what you say?
No, they should play better against good teams if they're going to play a lot of good teams. Like you have a luxury. You play in a great league.
Yeah.
You played a great league. You have this opportunity in front of you. Play better, and don't lose your last potentially 7 games. Like if they lose their playing game, that's a 7-game losing streak with a 9-19 record against Q1. Like I don't like their chances in that situation.
All Q1 games are not the same. Okay.
That's true.
You look at the Q1 team South Carolina played, look at the very top of the RPI and tell me how far you get down before you find one South Carolina didn't play. Okay.
Yeah.
You're going to get to 8. Okay. So they played the top 7 RPI teams. Well, who's going to win those games? Right. You're not going to have a lot of success if you play that many good teams. And that's kind of where, when you're trying to do this, yeah, I'm playing a quad 1 team. It's on the road and they're 40, right? Well, that counts just the same as a home game against Kentucky.
That's
okay.
fair.
Well, that's not the same. But and that's what I'm trying to go in and look at the nuance between how these are being judged. I do not like the way they designed the quads, and we talked about this in the off season when they announced it. It is not the same, right? When you look at, you have these big margins and home road splits like this. I mean, to me, this is ridiculous, right? You cannot gauge these the same way. Just the example I used, it's ridiculous. But you need some way to evaluate how teams are playing against the best teams in the country. I would like to see like how you played against the top 10, how you played against 11 through 20, and so on.
But at some point you have to
break it down because it's not the same.
You're right. It's not.
25 is a huge range. Would you run and play 1 or 25? Well, it counts the same in the quads, right?
Yeah. Well, and ultimately, I guess that's, one of the criticisms of the whole system is like, why even look at any of the records against the tiers? Because it's all baked into the RPI. It's all baked in ultimately, right? Like,
yeah.
You can break it down however you want. You could say, what's your record against the top 13? Well, we didn't play team 14. Like it's
right.
like, where do you draw the line?
Right. Yeah. And I understand that, but I think my hot button here is just looking at it and go, okay, well, you lost, so you suck. right? And that's not really the case because everybody's going to lose to those teams.
Yeah.
Everybody does.
Yeah, that's
So,
fair.
it's just that's kind of where I am on
But
this.
but like I'm just arguing from the opposite point is like you also shouldn't get like this free pass because you played a bunch of good teams. Like just playing them
they beat
for
some
me
of them.
doesn't. They beat some of them, and that's why they're in the discussion.
Right.
Because they beat some of them. Otherwise, they wouldn't even be in the discussion.
Well, see, we had them hosting 2 weeks ago. I mean, this is
and
not
then
somebody
they got
who's
swept.
terrible. I know.
And then they got swept 2
Who
weeks
they
in a row,
play?
and one of them was at home. One of them was at home though.
And who
like
they
you're
play?
at home, and like hey, getting swept at Tennessee, we saw that coming. Getting swept at home by Georgia and getting blown out.
That was bad.
3 days in a row.
That was bad.
Hard
But
to justify.
if this happens in week 2 or week 3 of conference play instead of week 9 or week 10, are we really going to beat South Carolina up for this? Because that happened to Alabama. They got swept by Kentucky and Georgia, and we all say, "Oh, Alabama's playing great," right? So it's a lot of it is when you run into these things, and I think that's of course.
But I think also like you're right, like that part of that is luck of the draw, but also part of it is it just like playing. If you're playing well at the right time, you're going to beat good teams at the end of the year. And like if you're not, and maybe and maybe part of that is hey, these teams are just better than you, and you had the bad luck of having them on your schedule at the wrong time. But also like if you're a good team and like South Carolina when they were playing their best, they could have beaten these teams. They would certainly would have gotten run out of their own building 3 days in a row by Georgia, like if they played like a month earlier. So like they just weren't good enough at the right time when they played them.
I won't argue with that. But just because you're not good enough to beat the top 7 teams in the country doesn't mean you're not one of the top 33 at larges. Okay. And that's, I guess
so here's what I'm asking you. Where do you slot them with his SEC? Like that, I guess that's where we come down to here.
I'm not really slotting them against each other in the conference. I guess I can, but I'm looking at them compared to some of the other ones.
For the sake of like this
Alabama be the top for me.
Yeah.
I like Alabama. I mean, the Florida pick there. I think LSU with the way they're playing right now, I can get behind that as the next team.
So do you go Alabama, Florida, LSU? That's your first three?
That would be my first 3. And then I would go South Carolina and then Vanderbilt.
So Vanderbilt at the back of that pack. Interesting.
I would. I mean, they're 4-12 on the road.
Yeah.
They haven't played well. Of course, neither South Carolina, but they haven't played great down the stretch. South Carolina did sweep Vandy earlier in the year.
Which counts.
Vanderbilt has not won a series since April 20th.
Yeah, that's tough.
That would be my order, the way that I've got them here.
Vanderbilt does, however,
we put any of these on the bubble that you want. I just kind of put them in order.
Vanderbilt, however, does have again. You can go round and round and round with the head-to-heads, but they took 2 out of 3 against Florida and 2 out of 3 at LSU, just looking at the bubble teams. But they were swept by the Gamecocks, and so trying to play the transitive property game, you're gonna get yourself in trouble.
Yeah, no doubt. So. Do you want to put these teams on the bubble, or do you feel like they're going to be in? Or
for now, I would leave all these 13-win teams on the sheet and yellow highlights, and we'll come back to it. That's what I would say.
Okay.
We can move quickly through these last few here. SoCon is Greensboro. They did win the league. They were our pick last week. They won the league by 1 game over Samford. So congratulations to the Spartans. Southland is Lamar. Lamar, by the way, like Greensboro, both finished currently in the mid-50s in the RPI, which like is not a disqualifier for an at-large, but like realistically, these leagues never really get the benefit of the doubt with teams like just outside the top 50 or even just inside the top 50 of the RPI. They just never seem to get the benefit of the doubt with an at-large bubble situation. But like theoretically, they're on the bubble if they don't win the automatic bids. But we're going to go ahead and assume that neither of them would get a bid and consider those 1-bid leagues. But keep Lamar as our automatic qualifier. To the Sun Belt, your Cajuns. I'm sorry, the SWAC. Yes, indeed. Florida A&M remains well. You can make a case for Texas Southern. I guess they finished technically percentage points ahead of A&M, but I like the Rattlers guys.
Okay,
stick with it.
Well, what about your Summit?
The Summit League, guys. The tournament's in Tulsa, so I think we stick with stick with Oral Roberts, guys. Even though they finished in 4th place, coming off a trip to the Division I Men's College World Series in Omaha, Nebraska last year. I don't know if you guys heard that.
I recall that. Yeah,
they were in the Division I Men's College World Series last year in Omaha, Nebraska. They finished 4th place in the Summit League, which only has 6 teams. They finished in 4th place in the Summit League this year. They finished 274th in the RPI. By the way, they're only 305.
The Summit League includes a school called Oral Roberts, who, by the way, finished 4th place in that league.
It's puzzling.
There are. Hold on. Where's UMass in the RPI? Does anyone know?
Congrats to the Tommies.
They're UMass, by the way.
Never did what they did not win a game.
Unfortunately, they finished 0-48 this year. They're 304th in the RPI, but they're only 30 spots behind Oral Roberts, who was in the Division I. Who was in the Division I Men's College World Series last year in Omaha, Nebraska? They finished 30 spots ahead of 0-48 Maryland Eastern Shore. I just wanted to make sure we were clear on this.
Yeah.
What would happen if
you did not win a game?
Roberts.
What if UMass was in the Summit? Would they fare better?
I mean, you would have to imagine.
It's not like they could be worse.
With Oral Roberts.
Let's go to the Sun Belt.
Let's go to the Sun Belt, boys. Whew. Louisiana and Southern Miss are your slam dunks here.
Yep.
Both finished mid-30s RPIs. Congrats to Southern Miss for really a strong second half here. Won 9 of the last 10. Surged to second place. They're safe. JMU took 2 or 3 from Troy this weekend.
Yeah, they're the next team. JMU.
Add them to the list here because they were off last week.
Yeah.
And then there's Coastal.
So, yeah, we've got Troy and Coastal.
Right.
Yep. Troy finished, 3rd place. Actually, a game ahead of James Madison, but they're 53 in the RPI. Troy's 44, and JMU won the head-to-head. So, 53 in the RPI for Troy with kind of a lackluster finish. Very, very bubbly. Coastal, 35 RPI, guys. They swept Marshall on the road this weekend. 35 RPI. They're 16 and 14 in the league, which is good enough for 7th, which is not ideal.
Yeah.
They do, however, have
a road series sweep over. Oh, that's Troy. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say they have an AD on the committee, and they have a retiring.
Does that matter? I thought he leaves the room.
They have a beloved retiring head coach.
Yeah,
I certainly would like to see.
That wouldn't ever matter.
I would certainly like to see Gary Gilmore in the tournament. I'm unabashedly telling you, I really want to see Gary Gilmore in the tournament. It is last year, but they did finish 7th in the league. But it's a good RPI. So, and they have a member on the committee.
Yeah, heard something about that.
So I don't know.
They're the seventh seed in the Sun Belt, and they have an extra game that 7 through 10 as a play-in on Tuesday.
Oh, interesting.
So even if you win, you burn an arm, okay, or maybe multiple arms. So it does make going on a run that much more challenging.
Yeah.
They also are just 2-7 Q1. Troy 6-5. I mean, Troy's also, again, 53 RPI, Coastal's 35. So I don't know how you reconcile. Troy won the head-to-head at Coastal.
Yeah, but it's 20 points in the RPI.
Almost 20 points in the RPI. Does that make up the 3-game gap in the standings and the head-to-head? Maybe. But right now I would have them both on the bubble, and I don't know. Like, Mark, what's your order for those two teams, Troy and Coastal?
What is the committee's order? I would say Coastal, then Troy, or James Madison, then Coastal, then Troy.
Right.
My order would be Troy first, but I think the RPI is going to matter.
Yeah. My order would be JMU, Troy, Coastal, but I think you're right that I worry. I think the committee would probably put Coastal ahead based on the RPI alone. in the politics. Let's go to the West Coast Conference. For now, we'll put it both on the board here. Coastal and Troy both on the board as bubble teams. West Coast Conference is a one-bid league, San Diego, unless... Here we go. Alert! Should somebody besides the Toreros win the West Coast Conference?
Keep it on the Pilots.
Bid league.
Portland's playing well.
11 straight wins for Portland.
How about that? Coach Rooney's Portland Pirates. Coach Rooney was all over Portland. Wrote a fall report on him. He was all over him. Good club out there. Dangerous. And then the WAC, of course. Speaking of Coach Rooney loves him some Grand Canyon antelopes. Lopes won the league by 5 games, guys. That will remain our projected automatic qualifier. So we've got 68 teams for 64 spots.
We do.
We've got a lot of bubble teams to choose from for trimming, though.
I think for me, Cal and Louisville would be the first 2 off for me.
I think I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I think because of where each of their RPIs are, they both need to win games this week.
Yep. So that gives us 2 more to trim. Candidates include Troy and Coastal, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, whatever. Like, pick your SEC team, which I guess is Vanderbilt.
One to talk about for me would be Xavier, just because where they are in the conference.
4th place in the league.
They would be off for me.
Cut them. 4th place in an 8-team league. I mean, season on the line, you lose a series to Villanova. That's just tough that's tough.
When I did this earlier, the other team I cut was Cincinnati.
That's what I was going to go with.
Where their RPI is. I like what they've done in conference. They have some good wins. It's just it's just hard to make that leap. They're going to have to win games this week.
Yeah,
and they will. But
I think you're right. Cut them. Cincinnati's out. So that's it.
So that means the teams that got in, I mean, CAA got 3. Sunbelt got, 5? So James
Madison is in. It's an addition this week.
Yeah. The issue, the other thing too is, like, if you look at the SEC schools, all of them got in. The problem you're going to have is, if you're the committee, is if you're using this new KPI and you're sitting there saying that you're putting a lot of stock into it, and all of these SEC schools are top 25 or top 22. Like, what the hell's the point of using it if, like, you're going to leave teams out that are in the top 22 of a metric that you just added as one of the things to consider?
Yeah. I mean, for me, all of these teams, and I know people don't want to hear this, but they are well ahead of some of these other bubble teams. I would cut many of these before I would cut these 5.
Many, huh?
We'll see. Well, I mean, I'm probably 5 of them.
Yeah.
So we added this week Florida, LSU, and James Madison, right?
We added Florida, LSU, James Madison. Yeah, let's see if we added anyone else.
We cut
last
Utah.
week's deal.
Yeah, so. we cut Utah and Cincinnati. Who else did we cut? It had to be a 3rd one.
Xavier.
Thank you. Yes, Xavier. Here we go. 3 in, 3 out. That makes it easy. Utah, Cincinnati, Xavier out. James Madison, Florida, LSU in. Oh, they're gonna love us, guys. America is gonna love us. We're loading up on the SEC. We got 11 You know what? Can we just go for 13 SEC teams? Can we do that?
Ole Miss. We didn't talk
about
that.
Throw them all in.
They had no shot. They've got to get to Sunday of the SEC tournament to have a shot.
They basically got to win the automatic. So
God, we love the SEC.
Of these, who would we call our last 4? Okay. For me, Troy would be one.
Yes, for sure. Coastal, got to be.
Yeah.
Coastal.
Vanderbilt. South Carolina.
Indy over Wilmington.
I mean,
Explain
Wilmington
how
would
you
definitely
would
be in my last 5.
Wilmington over them.
Yeah, mid-major with an RPI of 48, without a doubt.
Vanderbilt, Wilmington, Coastal, Troy, Vanderbilt, Wilmington.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I'm with you on that.
In the order, Coastal, then Troy.
Yeah, Cincinnati would be my first team out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cincinnati and Louisville and Xavier in that order for me.
Cincinnati.
I'm very intrigued by Cal, but that's fair. The RPI needs to come up.
Yeah.
Any kind of seed quibbles with what I've got here?
Let me pull it up. Hold on.
So the only one, I mean, Illinois is a 2, but they did win the number 4 rated RPI conference.
Good with
and
that.
There's not just a slam dunk 3 here that should be a 2.
I think I'm good with this. I like it.
Okay, guys. Well, this was fun. We we hashed it out and part as friends.
You know what?
I mean,
we're getting good at this. Under 90 minutes. For this time of year, I think that's impressive. Under 90 minutes, especially considering we had some robust debate.
Yeah.
Mark,
and a lot
as you
changed
said,
from last week.
Yeah. Mark, you and I went at it a little bit. We parted as friends.
Yeah.
More respect than ever for the NMG.
Yeah. Well, it was fun. I enjoy, and I know you guys love this too. I mean, this is the best time of year. I love this shit. So this is not work. This is passion. So
it is. No, this is really the I mean, hey, we said it at the beginning. Like, this is it. I mean, this is. I'm gonna wait for a sign. This is it. It's a great time of year. Conference tournament week is wild. It's always like day to day. There's just so much happening. Head on a swivel, really for the next 3 weeks. Head on a swivel, but especially this week for us field watchers. And we'll have frequent updates over the course of the week. We'll put our
probably Wednesday, maybe.
Yeah, I would think so. I would think Wednesday.
Maybe Wednesday evening after some of the early games.
Right.
Yeah.
Try to do one, and then
maybe.
And then from there, maybe it's it's daily until we wrap up, and then I guess Sunday night we'll try to do another Nerdcast.
Yeah, for sure. We always do the Sunday night Nerdcast, our final projection. Make sure you don't miss that one. That's probably the most anticipated show of the year. Really, it's like the
Thrones.
Yeah, it really is. It's like Game of Thrones season finale every year. It's.
I just hope none of the main characters get killed off. So
huge ratings, huge. Yeah. God, if this is the day.
Yeah, this has been great, guys. So until next time, we'll watch the games. We'll try to tell you what's happening, and we're gonna pick another field or two before this thing's over. So